are Geelong, the greatest team of all. We are Geelong, we're always on the ball. We play the game as it should be played, at home or far away. Our banners fly high from dawn to dark, down at Cardinia Park.
So that's it. It's Geelong and Richmond together.
To work so hard this year in trying circumstances to give ourselves the chance to face the ultimate success, I think is a credit to the way our whole club and our supporters have approached the challenge of this year.
It's one thing to get there, but obviously the challenge is to get there and win it. Any team is beatable, and we feel we're up for the challenge.
Be prepared to play every minute of the game. Only walk out here if we're going to be aggressive.
We'd love nothing more than to be able to bring that cup back down the highway where it should be.
Yes, hello Cats fans and welcome to your official Cats Grand Final preview presented by our great friends at Ford. Well, are you tired of those footy shows that are all balanced and focusing on impartiality? Well, if so, you've come to the right place because this is all about your mighty Cats and you as the fan base. And a man who can help me through this better than none other. He's a Carjagoos medalist, the Geelong champion, Liam Pickering. Welcome, Picks.
Well, that's a very loose introduction, Sammy, but fantastic to be here. Very excited about tomorrow night's game. Can't wait. Bring it on. About time the Pussycats were back in the big dance after a few prelims. Now they're in the big stuff.
Well, 24 hours until bounce down. The excitement, even down here in Melbourne, is fever pitch. We can't wait for this. You know this day well. You played in 2 of them.
Ooh, not that well.
What would the players be feeling 24 hours before?
Oh, it's just excitement now. You just bring it on, hoping that the game's going to... You can't wait for the game to start. I love the fact the Cats have stayed down on the Gold Coast. That it's going to drive up tomorrow like they normally do. Keep your preparation pretty normal. They'll probably go and do a bit of a beach stuff in the morning. Get themselves ready. Jump on the bus. Cruise up there in the afternoon, get themselves ready for tomorrow night's game. I like that prep. Richmond, they're in a hotel in Brisbane. You can't do much in and around Brisbane. Keep your routine. I like the way they're going about it.
Cats fans, this is a show for you, but it's also a show with you. So feel free to send in your messages throughout the program and we'll do our very best to put them up on the screen below. So get involved right now. What about the path to get here, Picks? It was a close qualifying final loss. They were good against Port Adelaide. Then they absolutely hammered Collingwood.
Yep.
A surgical dismantling last week of the Brisbane Lions. So the form line could not be much better.
It was a cunning plan to lose that first final and give them those games in a row, which I think is really important. The Cats play better when they're playing week after week. They don't play well with breaks. And so this build-up, I think, has been perfect because they were all tough games. Certainly the first one was a really tough final. And, yeah, they just lost, but they had their chances to kick a few points when they could have kicked goals. A dismantling of Collingwood, as you said. And then I thought, really, after half-time last week,
yep.
And I reckon the umpires might have kept a minute in the first half, 10-2 the free kick count, which I may have mentioned on In the Mix. But the Cats just put their foot down after half-time. So, to me, they've got gears as a footy team. And the composure and getting on top early is going to be really important against a good side like Richmond.
Quarter time last week, it was 15 clearances to 4. So the scene was set and the forward line was humming along, wasn't it? Tom Hawkins was back. Gary Rowan had a real influence. And the little master Gary Ablett thought he'd chip in for a couple of goals as well. So while the midfield got on top, and we'll speak a lot today about, Duncan and Menegola and Guthrie, the forward line was humming.
Well, it was. And it helps when the ball's being won at the stoppages. And I thought Sam Simpson's first quarter last week really helped set that first quarter performance up, really, because they got on top. Even though they weren't really dominating on the scoreboard, I thought there were some really good passages of play there early in that match from 50-50 balls, which is what you've got to do. You see the ball in Gary Ablett's hands, something's going to happen. That's just what happens with Gary Ablett. So we understand that. Hawkins kicked a lot better last week, the big Hawk. their forward line's a lot better than it was last time they played Richmond, because Dangerfield, you'd think, would play more there than he did last time. Rowan will be playing and Ablett will be playing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Simpson will be playing. So they've got 3 different players, plus you'd think Danger going through there as well. So it'll be a whole different forward line setup than the last time where the Cats played Richmond and fell into that trap of bombing it high and long, just to Hawkins. And that suited Grimes and these type of characters last time. So there'll be a different plan to use the ball going inside 50, but that's all well and good. You've got to win it at the contest.
I'm going to utter the words that have been uttered a lot over the course of his long and illustrious career, but how good was Gary Ablett, Picks? How good was he? There's storylines everywhere in grand final week. It's hard not to be drawn to this one.
Well, Gary Ablett. He does this stuff. He does it. We shouldn't be surprised, 36 years of age or not. He's still one of the cleanest finishers in the game. It's a swan song for Gary, but give him any bit of room, which they will be trying not to, obviously, Richmond, and he is a menace to play against. And he's always stood up in big games. I expect him to do it again tomorrow.
Chris Scott is a man that knows what he's doing, the coach. In his 10 seasons in charge, this is the 9th time they've made finals. The 2nd time they made the grand final, of course, and they won the premiership in 2011. I think they've made the prelim or better on 6 of those occasions as well.
Yep.
69% winning record, if you don't mind, which is the most amongst coaches who've coached more than 100 games. It is a magnificent record. Can he cap it with another flag? We'll wait and see. But this is how he gave us a little insight earlier, Picks, about how he does his best to prepare his men to play a game of footy.
Well, it's actually quite a nice period to think about. It's almost to go through the to-do list, go through all the scenarios. And unfortunately, that can create a bit more stress as well, because generally the scenarios are built around things going wrong. If this happens, then what? But it helps clear my head a little bit at the same time as well, just get the priorities in order. And then there's a bit of time to access the players if I need to. Now, I think this is a really dangerous period for coaches, because there is so much swimming around in a coach's mind an hour or 2 before the game, and the temptation is to bombard the players and either give them information that's over and above what they need, or to remind them of something for the 10th time, which just annoys them. So that is an active process for me of trying to not avoid the players, but avoid talking to them about the specifics too much. Most of the work's done. It's really about being in the right psychological frame of mind to attack the game. This is my 10th season now, but I still remember my first game coaching the Cats. Was against St Kilda at the MCG, and I had spent a lot of time that week thinking about what I would talk about, and still wasn't really sold on what I would say when I was driving over the West Gate. And it was almost at that point I decided, if nothing else, I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to talk about the things that I think are right in the moment, as opposed to being too scripted or pre-prepared. And that's something, even though it has evolved, it's carried through all the way until today. So, in the whatever it is, I don't know how many games I've coached, how many times I've talked to the players pre-game, but I've never pre-prepared that meeting. Put a few things up on the board as some cues for me and for the players. But I do my best to speak from the heart and talk about the things that are the most important for our performance, in my opinion, at the time. And there's been plenty of examples where the sort of things I suspected I would talk about half an hour before the meeting completely change 5 minutes before the meeting, based on a little conversation with Joel Selwood, or something Harry Taylor said to me, or the feel that the assistant coaches have got. So hopefully it's natural, hopefully it's succinct, it prioritises the key areas. And also I hope it's not just to make the coach feel better about himself, because that's the way it can often be. You just, whenever we lose, and this hasn't changed for me, but whenever we lose, the coaches always feel as if it, to a large extent, was their fault and there's something we should have done. And then again, you go back to that temptation pre-game of wanting to have told the players everything you think might happen so that you can satisfy yourself post-game that if it doesn't work out, well, at least you told them. And I don't think that's conducive to a good environment. So while it's natural and while it's pretty unstructured, I'd still like to think it's pretty disciplined as well.
A couple of things there, Picks, is how calm, almost zen-like he generally tends to be in the box, Chris Scott, and how he doesn't like to overload his players too much tactically, which must be a great temptation, especially when the stakes are at their highest for a senior coach.
Oh, absolutely. Cool, calm and collected is what we saw there, and that's what he's been all year. I think he's coached the house down this year. I really do. I've heard criticism about Chris Scott over the years, and I just can't, for me, I've just never been able to get my head around. I'm thinking, what more can this bloke do? So I hope he gets his just desserts tomorrow. Premiership in his first year. Didn't get the credit he should have for that.
Well, I was just going to say, he won that premiership and he didn't get the credit for it.
Didn't get it because apparently they were already going to... They lost the prelim the year before by...
They got smashed.
10 goals plus. He came into a team, they've lost Ablett, and he comes in with a new team and gets them to a flag. The only team that beat Collingwood all year and beat them 3 times. So I think he's an excellent coach. I think that sort of sums up a bit about the way this mature group are playing and the way they go about their football. And I've been so impressed by how they've handled the hub. Haven't heard one peep out of the Geelong camp all season. So they're playing with a smile on their face, and if you've got a coach that's in that sort of frame of mind, you can understand why.
Great determination. I think you mentioned it off air. Paddy Dangerfield, we haven't seen him smile once.
Has not smiled during the final series. Goal, post-games, nothing. He's just all business.
And you like that?
I love it because, he is a jovial character, but he has just got a look of determination, Patrick Dangerfield, that says, this is my year, this is our year, and we're going to get what we're all here to do, which is win this premiership.
Our first guest won a couple of those for Geelong in 2011 and 2007 as well. He played 189 games for the Cats. It's a great pleasure to welcome him to the pre-game show. Matthew Stokes, welcome, Matty.
Thanks, boys.
Well, grand final day and the night before, what sort of emotion does it stir inside you having won the 2 premierships with the Cats?
Look, it's a bloody amazing experience, and you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out all the different results that can go through what happens over the next 24 hours. So, 1 minute you're thinking that you won and you got the flag, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about what happens if you lose. So, I think the guys who can handle it the best are guys who can narrow their focus on the game and look at what's ahead of them in the next 24 hours. So, it's a very nerve-wracking time, and I don't think anyone would be able to get through those 24 hours without thinking about the result of the game. But it's the guys who can refocus leading into the games are normally the ones who have the biggest impact, and the team that can focus the best will probably win.
So 2007 is your first grand final, Stokesy. So all of a sudden you go in, you're a kid, you're like the rest of them. No one's been in grand finals before. Can you remember your first quarter and how you settled into the match?
Yeah, I did something really silly, Pickers. I'm a very small man, as you know, and I tried to go for a specky in the first quarter, and I ended up popping my kneecap out just before the quarter siren, the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter. And I went into the rooms, and the docs were sort of speaking to me, and they gave me an injection. They said, hopefully in about 2 or 3 minutes you should be right. And I just remember the feeling of not having to feel my knee or my leg at all. So strapped it up and I was able to get through the rest of the game. But it was sore afterwards. But the nerves was pretty much out of it straight away.
Yeah.
We were able to get on top really quickly. And I guess when you're a younger player, the nerves are quite different to when you're an experienced campaigner. But yeah, they're all different. 2011 against Collingwood and hearing the roar. I was a Collingwood supporter growing up and idolised Nathan Buckley. So to go out there on grand final day in 2011 with the Collingwood roar was incredible. So they're 2 different kind of feels, but and also 2 different ways the game went.
So Stokesy, someone who featured regularly in one of the greatest sides of the modern era, what do you make of this current group of Cats going into this grand final? What have you observed?
I think one thing I've learned over time is pretty disrespectful to try and measure up to different eras. I mean, I look at us and Pickers groups. They're very similar in a sense that they had superstars everywhere, but unfortunately they weren't able to have the ultimate success like we were. Doesn't make us a better team. We're still one team. So comparing eras is probably not what I do or what I'm about. But I think this group, for what they've gone through over the last 100 days or so, I reckon our group would kill each other if we were in the hub for 100 days. I mean, Stevie
Who would do the killing?
Oh, there would have been a few. Stevie and probably Chappie. Chappie probably was number one. Kel wouldn't have lasted very long because someone would have just kicked him out of the hub. Otto wouldn't have done very well because that means we had to play games of football. For this group, come on, Pickers, you know Otto.
I know.
I think this what they've been able to get through, both clubs, to get to the stage where they are. Because you've been hearing all the people come up to you in the street and saying, "Oh, it doesn't really mean that much." It's it's sort of it's a mean nothing kind of a grand final. I think it's absolute rubbish. This is the hardest I think would have to be won in the history of the AFL footy. Knowing what they've had to go through and just hearing some of the stories from afar, it's been incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting that the team, they look like they've got the mix right now, the Cats. And Stokesy, if you look at the experienced players, and we know they've got some older players like Gary and obviously Joel and these guys are getting on, Tommy Hawkins, but they've introduced kids along the way and the development of the younger guys like Myers and Simpson and these type of players that have just given that bit of spark to the group.
Oh, absolutely. I think the one thing that I go in tomorrow is really confident is the spread of players. I mean, our bottom six players and I think in grand finals are the reason why teams win is who can have the biggest impact out of the bottom, 6 or 10 players. And our spread of players is something that I think over the last 10 years is something that probably lacked. We've always relied heavily on Hawkey and Harry Taylor and Sel. Now I think we can have down patches from Paddy and Joel and still come away with a win. I think if you look over the final series, Joel or Paddy haven't dominated and we've still been able to win. So I'm really confident leading into tomorrow because we've got the spread of players that go across. You've got Tommy Stewart down back and Jed Buse. Jed Buse and Jack Henry probably maligned a little bit from afar. I've always respected nothing but respect for those two players. But, now we just have such absolute confidence in our players to be able to deliver in the bigger stages. And I think in grand finals, it's the guys who can make the right decisions at the right time are ones that will get you the win at the end of the day.
When we're supporters and you've got an involvement like you have, and obviously I have, because you've got a foot in the camp, if you like, what are the things, when I'm watching a game of footy, I go, right, they're on the night. You can tell if Reece Stanley's jumping over them at the centre bounce and they're cracking in and they get a couple of early clearances, that's when I know the Cats are on. A start in a grand final is critical, is that right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the way I looked at it the other day when we played Collingwood, watching Sam Simpson, he came in and his first probably 10 minutes was just seeing him bodyline the ball and one take. In finals, that's what it's all about. The guys who are clean, who make the right decisions, who are smart. To see him put his head over the footy about 3 or 4 times in a row, I just knew that we were on when someone that as young as him has just come into the finals series for Tommy Atkins. I knew then we were on. So I think you pick up little cues and your man does it probably better than anyone. He doesn't have that much of an influence like he used to. I mean, he used to getting 35 possessions a game and kicking forward. But the way that I love watching Gaz play is as his little body movements, his little taps, his one pick, one grab, pick up and handball and put people into space. I think they're the ones that, can shape the grand final. And I think we've got a lot of players who do the right things at the right time.
And just on Gary, you go all the way back to when he had hair. So he's seen off a lot of players in that time, hasn't he? He's been in the system 19 years.
He's been through. I watched some highlights of him the other night, and it's amazing. You can actually forget how good he was. I mean, and I saw up close. I mean, he still can't dance and play basketball for crap, but the one thing he could do was play footy. And watching his highlights the other night with his hair, I can't believe it took us so long. We had so many leading teams talk about people's training methods, but one thing that probably took us the longest to get through to him was that he probably was going bored and needed to shave it off. So it's been an amazing career. I just messaged him before. And, more than anyone, Pickers, I mean, there are people who sort of get away with being a superstar player but not being a terrific guy or a bloke. I think you couldn't picture a better bloke and a better player to mix than Gary. I mean, I still remember my first day at the club. He handed me a lot of Nike gear and made me feel welcome straight away. And, I was walking around town of Geelong without playing a game and thinking I was sponsored by Nike. So he's an amazing human being, and I really do pray that we get in. The other fella, the other old nut who's gone a bit grey, and Harry Taylor. Unifies what Geelong Footy Club is all about. Just giving everything you've got, being a good bloke along the way, and the results will show.
Yeah, hopefully they get the fairy tale to cap it all at the end. We're all hoping for that. Stokesy, great to have you. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the pre-game show. And look, as someone who played in a couple of flags and obviously the last one for Geelong, he's hoping the current crop can follow in your footsteps. Thanks for joining us.
No worries, boys. Thank you.
Go on you, Stokesy.
Well, great to have the other little master, Matty Stokes, join us on the official Cats Grand Final preview presented by our great mates at Ford. Well, Ian Pickering, the keys to this Grand Final. We've spoken a lot about centre clearances this year, particularly with so many games being played at the Gabba, tomorrow's venue, incidentally, where the Cats are 5-0.
Yeah, it's a nice little stat to have going in, but it doesn't mean much because it's a Grand Final and they're starting on 0 tomorrow. So let's look at what happened last time, because 10-2 out of the middle. The Cats dominated out of the middle in the first half, but they just didn't score. They didn't score. The game was at Metricon. It was a whole different game because whilst they were pumping it in, they were pumping into one person on 4. So there wasn't a lot of real...
Hawkins Island was more like Manhattan Island.
Well, because it was so predictable. Because the Cats just didn't lower their eyes. They didn't look for any other options. And I thought they wasted a lot of opportunities. But if they can get it in 10-2 in the first half against Richmond in the grand final, they'll have many more options to go with, and a smaller ground, by the way.
But the last time, we know Richmond had a couple of outs too, but in the front half for Geelong, no Ablett, no Gary Rowan, and Paddy Dangerfield played midfield for the game.
Yeah, it'll be a different setup. But, I mean, they had some injuries too. I think Soldo went off pretty early in that game. So, look, both sides will come in full strength. They're ready to roll. There's no excuses. Cats need to control the middle. Reece Stanley himself needs to get on top early. He's nearly the barometer of the team. And Duncan and all these guys, Menegola and Selwyn, that get to work in the middle of the ground. They rotate the other players through. The defence, they like to control the ball early. The weather may play a factor, but I think if we can win contested footy, the Cats, I think we'll win the match.
Let's talk about monopolising possession. It is often said when these two sides play, it's chaos v control. We know how Geelong like to play, and that is monopolising possession. In fact, when they win, they've got a disposal differential on average of +64. When they lose, only +10. So we know if they're going to control the pill, they stand a very good chance.
Yeah, that's fine. It's great. And that's exactly what happens. But Richmond are a great pressure team. They'll come at you, they'll keep coming at it, and they'll force poor kicks. That's what they do.
So be brave with possession this time.
Be brave with possession, and I think they will. I think they will. It's a grand final. Maybe try and control the tempo a little bit in the first quarter of the game, because that's where it can be set up. You get away to a really good start in the grand final. They're damn hard to peel back teams when they get on top early.
And I reckon since that Richmond game, which was only in round 17, but in the last few games, it looks like the Cats have been a bit more aggressive with the ball too, particularly off half-back. Just a little bit more urgency, just enough.
But they do that once they've got control. So in the last 2 wins, which have been Collingwood obviously in Brisbane, they've got control of the middle of the ground first, poured enough pressure on and forced the ball slowly into defence, and that's where they're so good. You know, the Stewart and Blixarves getting back. I mean, he's an enormous player, Blixarves. I love him as a footballer. I think he's probably one of the... Well, if he's not the Cats' most important, he's damn close to it, in my view, because he can play a number of positions. We know he'll pinch it back up rucking on the weekend. He'll get back and help out Harry Taylor. He'll help out Lockie Henderson and these type of characters. O'Connor's important. Colin Jasney's important. Martin's the one they need to control forward of the ball.
That's the third
forward of the middle of the ground. That's where he'll spend most of his time. He's dangerous in the stoppage, don't get me wrong, but I think his biggest weapon is when he plays on the half-forward line and he's able to roam around. Get that match up right, you can control their forward line.
Rarely has one man been so critical to the result of a game. I mean, this guy in big games, and the resume speaks for itself, he just must be contained, both in the midfield and forward. You mentioned Colin Jasney. What happens when Dustin Martin perhaps plays some more midfield time?
Well, I think it'll be Guthrie. I mean, he's the obvious one. He's the big-bodied midfielder that is in really good form, Cam Guthrie. He's had a terrific year. So, but all those midfielders have. Sam Menegola, obviously Duncan's had a terrific season, and he's a really good user, a smart footballer, Mitch Duncan, and Cam Guthrie's back to the Cam Guthrie of 3 years ago.
How was Menegola not All-Australian?
Oh, well, you can only fit 22 in. Sam had a great year. How they'll vote in the BNF will tell you where the Cats rate them. I think they've all had fantastic seasons. It's all up to this day, though. It's come down to this game and being able to...
Oh, grab a jumper, Picks. Grab a jumper.
Someone said to me, can you bring out some of your old kit? And I'm thinking, I'm not going to fit into any of my old jumpers. No. But anyway, so I'm looking forward to it. But the start is really important. It's really important that Reece Stanley gets up, he jumps hard at that first centre bounce, he gets his knee up, he gets in after, and they will. and then all of a sudden you can get control of the game. But
All right. Settle down. There's still 24 hours to go. Just calm the farm.
I'm not playing my game yet.
Calm the farm. Hey, the grand final parade, normally today, Friday, in Melbourne. It roll through the city streets and it's a magnificent occasion. Sadly, like so many things, it didn't take place this year. But do you reckon that stopped the Cats doing their own grand final parade? Not on your life.
Colour all the glitz and glam of grand final week here.
Yeah, mate, just trying to keep it as exciting as possible. Obviously, it's probably a bit more relaxed up here in Queensland, away from, I guess, the footy bubble and back home in Victoria. So just having a bit of fun with it, mate, today. So it's been good.
We've seen some snaps from back down south on the socials the last few days. How awesome is it just to see the Cats fans getting around the club?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's been a long year, a lot of hard work going into this stage to get to where we are. So seeing all the support back home is awesome. And, hopefully we can, go all the way and bring the cup back home and celebrate with those guys.
Your first AFL grand final, how does it feel to finally get to this point in your career?
Oh, mate, it's super. I've played in a few prelims so far, lucky enough to do that. And obviously we haven't quite gone all the way, but, obviously taking that next step this week. So, mate, really going to jump at the opportunity. I know the boys are super excited. I just can't wait for the challenge and, hopefully we can go all the way, mate.
And you're still searching for that first AFL goal. Grand final snag on the cards?
Oh, that'd be unbelievable, mate. That's a dream come true. That's been sort of a bit of bickering in the locker room from the coaches and players. If I can get it done in grand final today, it'd be an absolute dream come true.
Good luck for Saturday.
Perfect, mate. Thank you.
Hey, well, those mighty Fords. And how good was that up there? The grand final parade the Cats put on. Great to see some fans there as well, Picks.
Yeah, it's Southport Footy Ground, that was. Yep. That's where the Sharks play. But, no, it was fantastic. A bit of fun. I think all the Cats website and all the social media teams around all the clubs, not just Geelong, have been fantastic at getting behind this season. It's been a team effort from everyone.
Loved it. A parade with a difference. I love the form of this man back in the day. He was best known for a 121-game career, which was fantastic. Now he's best known as the father of Sam Simpson. His name is Sean Simpson. G'day, Sean. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Sam. How are you?
Hey, well, I'm well, but more importantly, how are you? How are the nerves 24 hours out?
Oh, I'm very good, mate. It's been a good week. I've really enjoyed the build up to the game. Slightly different than normal. Normally here in Geelong, there'd be lots of streamers hanging off cars and shop windows and whatnot. It's a little bit of a slow burn this year here in Sleepy Hollow, but I'm sure in Queensland the boys are quietly excited about Saturday night.
Oh, well, this man's not so quietly excited. You shared a locker room with him for a long time, Liam Pickering. What was he like before a grand final?
Oh, mate, every hair had to be in place. And he was the first one, I think, to shave his legs back in the time. Like, we didn't do that sort of stuff.
I like it.
I didn't. That's not right, Sugar. Now, listen, I'm a bit worried because Shoal, sent me a text, Brad Shoal, an old teammate of ours. He's worried that you're going to play the game before it starts. So, going to have an early night tonight. So don't keep some petrol in the tank for tomorrow night before the game starts, Simo.
Yeah, no, he said to me, I was watching it with my family members last week, and he told me to put my elbows down, that my sister was complaining about some head highs during the game, that I was getting a bit anxious while the game was on. So, I need to keep a lid on it, and it's nothing like Brad to keep us in check, Liam, as you know.
Absolutely. Now, you've been on Media Street this week. You've gone down Media Street. You've lobbed up on radio, TV. You're on the news last night. The other website here with the Cats, you're doing a cashy down there in Geelong. I mean, do you feel more famous now than when you were playing?
Well, it wouldn't be hard. It's fair to say I was a battler at best, Pickers. So, no, mate, I've had a great week, and thanks to Sam, I'm really proud of him. He's certainly put his old man on the map this week. So, he's done a great job. He had a hamstring injury a few weeks ago, and he's been rehabbing pretty solidly with Joel Selwood, and he's worked his way back into the team. So, I'm very proud, and, I just hope the boys can go one better than we did in our day, Pickers. Yeah. That'd be awesome, mate.
Absolutely. Now, we know what it was like building up for your own grand final. You're excited, but you're really not aware of what's happening around you. When you've got a son in the grand final, and I would assume Busey's as well. Andrew Busey will be in the same boat, and Jack Hawkins, and obviously, and Gazza, but Gazza Senior's been in a few. Yep. So how's the feeling differ between when your own build-up and now you're a dad doing it with your young bloke?
Well, I'll tell you the main difference, Pickers. It's a dry show when your son's playing. You really want to soak it all in and be able to ride every bump and squeeze those butt cheeks when you want, mate. So, no, normally I'd be watching a grand final and have a few refreshments with either yourself or Billy or Barry Stone or whoever's around. But no, this year it'll be pretty measured. There won't be too much alcohol past the lips, hopefully, until the final siren, mate, and hopefully that'll be a Cats win.
Sean, from the outside looking in with Sam, he's just taken all before him. It looks like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. I mean, how's he gone about it? What makes him tick?
Yeah, he's pretty cruisy, Sam. He's unflappable, really. I'm not sure. He must get that from his mother. But, yeah, no, he's pretty cruisy. Everything he does, he's pretty natural at. If he picks up a golf club, he sort of swings at it and never had a lesson, and he looks pretty natural. Or in the swimming pool, he can swim away and look pretty natural. So, no, he's just one of those boys that, like most sports people, you know, they can turn their hand to anything. So, no, Sam, he's just got a really good temperament and... yeah, I'm not sure. He's always had that, and sometimes you wish that might hold him back because you'd like to see him get a bit more excited. But no, he's well measured, and when he plays the game, I think he plays it with a nice, clear mind and doesn't get overawed by the situation. So that's awesome.
And what some of the traditionalists would respect, Sean, was that he likes the high socks, like old mate next to us here.
And him, and Sean.
Oh, Shawnee too. Well, everyone did back in the day.
Yeah, well, Pickers used to start with them up, and then when he got a bit fatigued, which was like halfway through the first quarter, they'd be down around his ankles. But Pickers, it was a Malcolm Blythe thing, wasn't it, back in our day? Malcolm sort of used to say to us, listen, if you can't play, at least bloody pull your socks up and tuck your jumper in and look like you can play. So Sam started playing soccer as a young fellow. He's quite light, and we encouraged him to play a bit of bruise-free soccer to start him off. And yeah, they had the socks up and had the shin guards on, and yeah, he just sort of got into a system of playing sport with his socks up. So that's where it stemmed from. But he's in pretty good company. He's got a bloke wearing number 35 can play a bit with his socks up.
That's true.
He's not the only one. Buddy Franklin wears his socks up too. So there's a few great players that do wear their socks up. I'll tell you what, Simo, tomorrow's going to be a big day. So you don't think the town is effervescent, if you like, as it normally is coming into a grand final?
How do you spell that, Pickers?
Well, it was hard enough for me to spit out, let alone spell it. But effervescent, excited, bubbly, ready to roll.
No, you're on the money, mate. No, look, the town is just a slow burn here at the minute, but I'm sure come game time, Billy will be knocking back numbers there at the Cremorne, trying to keep them out, mate, because they'll be all wanting to get on board. But no, look, I'm just hoping that. You know, the Cats can get out of the blocks and have a good start. And I really think it's a genuine 50-50 game. I mean, the wet weather might work in favour of the Cats, but I think getting the Tigers at the Gabba works in favour. Sorry, the wet weather might work in favour of Richmond, but I think the Gabba will work in favour of the Cats. So, yeah, it's a genuine 50-50. I'm not sure what you boys think.
Well, I think the Cats will win, but that's my view as a commentator. But I actually am. I think they've got the game. Reece Stanley, a critical player at the start. We were just talking to Matty Stokes before, Simo. The way Stanley starts will set the barometer of how the Cats are going to go.
Oh, totally agree, Pickers. And I saw something on Fox Footy there last night with a few of the matchups, and I was just intrigued by, Nankervis against Stanley, Martin, Dangerfield, Prestia, Guthrie, Bolton, Duncan, Cochin, Selwood, Edwards, Parfitt. Like, they're all genuine 50-50s. I mean, whoever can get that ascendancy in the midfield is going to go a long way towards Big Tomahawk getting a good look at it, or at the other side of the game, Tommy Lynch getting a good look at it.
Sean, it's been great to have you. You had a great career, great comedy act too, I might add. We appreciate some of your humour this afternoon, this evening, and we've loved Sammy's work from afar. Best of luck to you and he and the family for tomorrow.
Good on you guys. Thanks for having me, and go Cats.
We'll talk tomorrow, Sugar.
Cheers, Dees. See you, mate.
Great to have Sean Simpson there. And Picks, despite you nagging me to do it, I didn't raise it, but one of the highlights of my year, in all honesty, was In the Mix, which we co-host throughout the year. And how it works is the club give us a little list of names who are in the mix that we read through and debate each and every week that the fans will know. You raised Sam Simpson to come into the side this year, and he wasn't even on our list. And obviously the rest is history, but some insider knowledge there? Or?
Well, I mean, leave the experts to do the expert stuff. I mean, I do have some reasonable contacts inside the club to know who's playing pretty well.
So good it was, they wasn't even in the club-issued list.
In the club issue list, exactly, they said, well, he knows more than we do. Well, sometimes you do know a little bit more than others. Anyway, no, he was going well, so he got picked that next week. So I did give myself a little pat on the back there. But, no, he's been fantastic, Sammy, and let's hope he plays well again tomorrow.
He's been a great story, an ongoing great story at the club, and have continued it this year despite all the unprecedented nature of the season. Is the work in the community that the Cats have done. They've very much kept that up. Let's hear from Tom Hawkins about the work that the players have done out in the community this year.
Hi, Tom Hawkins here from the Geelong Cats. 2020 has been a year like no other. We've all missed out on things from milestones, birthdays, seeing friends, for those that have missed school and or work. For us, while having the opportunity to play the game we love, we have really missed playing and having our members and fans come along to games in Victoria and being able to go out to schools, hospitals and junior clubs to deliver our community programs. However, this gave us an opportunity to really pivot and provide our community with our programs virtually and still be able to engage with everyone as best as we could, at home or far away. As players, we are in a unique position of privilege in our community. I know I certainly don't take this position of privilege for granted, and I'm certain my teammates don't either. We all try and give back where we can, and we all encourage each other to be better on and off the field, even when sometimes we fall short. Through our programs such as Healthy Heroes, BioCats, CyberCats, Welcome to Geelong and Cats Care, we have still been able to give back and continue to provide education and resources on messages. Some of these topics are more important than ever. To be able to see students still working hard at home, put smiles on the faces of those doing it really tough, and celebrate culture has been a real highlight for us. We know that together we can make a difference in the community, and if our work as players and a club can teach us something, it's perspective and how lucky we are.
Some of the great work the Cats have still been doing, and what a great effort that is out in the community there, Picks, and doing a magnificent thing. It concerns, you know, far beyond their field of expertise, but great to see them doing it out in the community.
Yeah, not a real surprise. They're a very humble group, and yeah, it was fantastic to see, and they've done a great job all year, and we haven't heard a peep out of behavioural stuff up with Geelong, so that's always a good sign.
Gary Ablett Jr., what more can you say about him? 356 games, if you don't mind. How's the resume on it? 2 flags, 2 Brownlows, 5 AFL MVPs, 8 All-Australians, 6 best and fairest, 19 seasons he's been doing it for, and he's about to play his last game, Pick.
Yeah, well, it's been an amazing journey. It's been a fantastic career from Gary. You know, it's been through... Like to go through as a young bloke coming through seen as a half-forward flanker, to develop into clearly the best midfielder that the game's seen in the last 20 years, in my view, and that's up against some terrific midfielders. But he was peerless for all those years, and I guess the best way for me to describe what everyone thinks, you know, people have the comments, you know, how good was Ablett? Who's better? He's better, and all this sort of stuff. I remember asking Buddy Franklin, who's the best player in the game? He said, Ablett clearly. Dane Swan, who's the best? He's the best player I've seen. Gary Ablett. Like, so these are peers, the very best players in their teams, and they're saying Pendlebury always said Ablett, clearly the best player in the comp. So that's in a period when he was leaving Geelong, and even that first 5 years at the Gold Coast.
Oh, red hot.
When he was injury free. I mean, it tells you how good he is. And then to come back to Geelong and reinvigorate the forward line work in, you know, 33, 34, 35 or 34, 35, 36, and to be still contributing in some way like he has this year, it's just a credit to his professionalism.
You're in such a unique position because obviously you played with his old man in some of the biggest games of your career, and then you've managed the son. So you're in a unique position to judge where both sit in the pecking order of things, which has been a great debate this week.
Oh, it has been, and yeah, it's impossible to compare the two, really, because they're different players. I mean, Gary Senior... I've always said is the best footballer I've ever seen. He could do stuff that only other players could only dream of. And, you know, he was just a freak. And people forget that he only went into the forward line, to full forward, in his last 3 or 4 years. He was in his 30s. And he kicked over 1,000 goals. So that's what a freak Gary Senior was. So he was a half-forward flanker wingman for the first eight years of his career or whatever it was, or 10 years. And then you got Gary Jr., who's the most complete player I've seen, for his ability to win for hard ball footy, for his clearance work, but his use of the footy and his finishing is just second to none. So that's what we want to see tomorrow night. We want to see Gary Ablett getting any bit of space in the forward line and creating like Gary Ablett can.
And because of his brilliance, I think what often gets overlooked is the behind-the-scenes stuff, the preparation, the diligence. You don't play 356 games by accident. A heap of discipline and work goes into it. And Gary Ablett offered us and the Geelong Footy Club a little insight into his pre-game preparation.
How are we, guys? Thanks for coming down. Yeah, it's it's been quite a journey, 19 years in the game now, and I obviously spoke during the week about my dream was just to play one game at the top level, and you fast forward 19 years, and it's been such a blessing to be in the game as long as I have, and also the fact that I get to celebrate it with Selby and his surrounded the game as well makes it extra special. So we'll jump into my prep. I won't think about the game too much for the next hour or so, and then start to focus, and away we go. I was just telling Murph I should have come in on a skateboard, NBA style. Yeah, so this is how I always start my prep. I like to come out, shoot a bit of basketball for 5 or 10 minutes. Usually if I'm shooting well, I play well. So I'll see what I can do. And then from there, I'll head in and start to get strapped and start to focus on the game a little more. Well, I actually rolled my ankle pretty bad a few years ago. I actually didn't strap my ankles before that. So it's just to give them a little bit more support. To be honest with you, I could play the game without them being strapped, but Mads does such a great job that why not? Yes, sir. Hit me up, hit me up.
Bloody big day. I'm going to be up and about.
Let's go. Nudge. I'm going to head down to the gym just to do a bit of mobility, get the body moving. Hey boys, how are we? And then I'll start a more active warm up after that. So I'm going to go get in my footy gear now, and then I'll go see the physios. Yeah, that's perfect. That's good. I'll just get the usual hammies, calves and quads. That's all right.
Go, guys. Well, how good was that, Pixon? The facility's absolutely amazing down there at GMHBA Stadium, much like back when you were playing.
No, they weren't like that, I guarantee you.
If you had facilities like that, would you still be playing?
Oh, geez, our group might have won a flag as well. Oh, no, it's a fantastic setup. They've done an unbelievable job. They've done an unbelievable job at the footy club. And so that's what you need in the professional modern day. Obviously, you need to give the players every chance, and those jumping trampolines and the pool, the basketball court. No, it's a fantastic setup. So well done to Brian Cook and his team.
Indeed.
That we're able to afford to be able to build that for the players.
They've come that far off the field, haven't they? And incidentally, that was filmed before the Gold Coast Suns came to town. Now, we heard earlier from Matty Stokes speak about how selfless Gary Ablett was.
He also said that Gaz was no good at basketball. I didn't see him miss one then.
How many takes was that? I don't think it was one take only. Spoke about how selfless Gary Ablett was. That was the game, of course, that Matty Rowell, the prodigy, hurt his shoulder, and we saw Gary Ablett go up to him and spend some time with him after the game.
Yeah, well, he's a great person. That's what the good thing about Gary, and that's what Stokesy said. And anyone that knows Gary personally would tell you that he's just a delight of a person. So, well done, little champion, on your career, and hopefully you go out with a big, big win in the grand final.
So he'll run out there. It's high stakes tomorrow, 24 hours from now. Picks, they're playing for keeps. Geelong against the other mob. Cats by how many?
I said this the other night on In the Mix. I think the Cats by 23.
Why do you keep saying 23?
Oh, it just happens to be a number I like.
Your number?
No, 23 points.
That was your number.
So, it happens to be the number that I think they'll win by, 23 points, mark my words.
Righto.
And Norm Smith medal, I'm going to surprise, I'm going with Gary Ablett. Because I think he'll kick 3 or 4 goals, and the little champ will go out with the Norm Smith as well as a premiership medal.
Cats by 10.
Emoji, fingers crossed.
Cats by 10. I've also got emoji.
Cats by 10?
Fingers crossed. Cats by 10. I reckon it'll be tight to the death. That's not an earth-shattering statement. Cats by 10. I'm going Norm Smith medalist to the man. And Gary Ablett is a fairy tale, but if anyone deserves a flag, it is Patrick Dangerfield. So I'm going with the High Sox man, Patrick Dangerfield, for the Norm Smith medal.
Here. And if he gets one, it'll be fantastic. He's worked so hard and he's had a real impact in this final series. Paddy?
Good luck, Cats fans. As we say, we've got our fingers crossed for you. Hope you enjoyed this pre-game show with a difference. We've kept the blinkers on, but it's got to be all about Geelong. We wish you the best of luck. It's a big game tomorrow night.
Cats.
Enjoy it. Look after yourselves. We'll speak to you on the other side. Go the Cats.
We play the game as it should be played. At home or far away. Our banners fly high from dawn to dawn. Down at Cardinia Park. We are Geelong, the greatest team of all. We are Geelong, we're always on the ball. We play the game as it should be